And welcome to the last webinar of the Nairobi Inspire Hackathon today. We will have more in the future day. Today, in this webinar, we will be talking about open land use for Africa. But before we dive into that, my name is Bente Lilja. I'm going to be your host today. I'm also a member of this team, and we will come back to that. Today, while people are getting on here, we will start with the weather report. This is a signature for my webinars. And you see beside me here, I have Dmitrij. And Dmitrij, can you start by telling us what the weather is like, where you are and where you are?
Hello, it's Dmitrij. I will be coordinating the teamwork in this team Open Land Use for Africa. And currently I'm in Prague. And in Prague it's sunny and around maybe 18 degrees. So like as you see, I'm in t-shirt. It feels like very hot here.
So almost summer weather in Prague. So where I am in Norway, at least we see the spring now. So we have now at the end of the day here, we have very nice sunny weather, and it's spring. The snow is melting super fast. So the spring is here. We would also like you to tell us where you are attending from. And if you have a weather report, we will be very happy. You see that we have this chat box beside you on the screen there. So fill in your weather report, where you're from. We will be very happy for that. And one of the reasons, first of all, we are a team. And if you haven't decided to join the hackathon yet, please do that. But we are a team, and we are going to work together on some problems. So getting to know each other is important. And that's why we also would like you to just give us a small message in the chat box. And the chat box is also where you can ask questions. So some housekeeping now first. You can ask questions in the chat box, but if you prefer to talk instead of writing, we can also invite you into the room here. You only need to raise your hand. You will see there's an icon there with a hand. Raise your hand, and I will be able to invite you into the room. There is some requirements, though. You need to have a good internet connection. You need to have a webcam and a headset like this. And probably you need also Chrome, the browser Chrome. But don't be shy. Ask questions in the chat box and raise your hand. We would love to meet you. So with that, we aim to end this webinar after 30 minutes, so 4:30 here local time in Europe. And we will start with a presentation and then some discussions on how to do this work. And Dmitrij will take care of all that. So with that, Dmitrij, I give the floor to you so we can see.
Thank you, Bente. Thank you for the introduction. And because it's maybe the first time that I meet with you in person, I think it's a good opportunity to not to be shy and to ask questions, because basically I have just the base of idea, but it's not yet concrete. It needs some contribution from your side. It also needs to reflect your interest, so that it's not just interesting for me to work on it, but also it's interesting for you, and that also you see sense in this work. So saying this, I will share the presentation, and please, after a presentation or even during presentation, as Bente said, you can raise your hand, ask a question, interrupt me, say if you didn't understand something, I can repeat it. I understand none of us probably is native English speaker, so it can be some problem with the language, but just don't hesitate. It's okay. So I will share the presentation now.
Yes. Excellent. Ahoy, Mike is saying hello. So we will turn off our screens, but we will be back.
So do you see the presentation now?
Yes, we see it. Go ahead.
Okay. So my idea is basically because when I see all projects, I think they need to have some practical implications, and what we see in Africa is that there are lots of problems related to environment, for example, deforestation, soil degradation, and so on, some uncontrolled urban growth, some like slums appear near city and growing uncontrollably, some people cutting trees in national parks and so on and so on. And partially this is, of course, it's related from one side to political system, to corruption. This probably and legislations that probably we will not influence here. But on another side, it also relates to basically some basic concepts like special planning that controls the use of land in certain communities. And what we will try to do in this project, we will try to show on the example of certain communities that if you have some smart spatial plan that manages the use of land and manages the use of natural resources, you can greatly improve the environment, and you can stop some bad processes about which I have mentioned, such as soil erosion, deforestation, overgrazing of pastures. Basically, all these processes usually they go hand in hand with each other, and basically, it's important, I think, that everyone who has interest is engaged in the work, and everyone who is interested is doing what he's interested in, because as I imagine, the outcome of our project, it will be the description of other communities that are interested in having this solution. So about work organization, yes,
Dmitry, we lost you. I think the internet connection was broken. So can you share your screen again?
Okay.
And we lost you for a minute or so.
Okay.
The presentation is coming back, Mike.
Yes, so thank you, Bente, for noticing. Do you hear me now?
I hear you and I see your presentation. So, Mike, can you confirm as well in the chat? That would be great. I think you're good to go. There's a little bit lag in, but I think you can go ahead, Dmitry.
Okay. So basically about work organization, we will organize our work through Trello.com, a project management platform, and to all people who I have seen registered for this team, I have sent links invitation to this platform to our team. So please, if you haven't done so, check your email, maybe even check spam folder, maybe it went to spam folder. And if you still haven't found invitation to our team on Trello platform, please write me an email at Dmitrij Seznamtsev. Here it's email address. And basically, I have divided our work into some parts, and I imagine that one of these parts it will be interested to you, and you could sign for helping with these parts. The parts you can see here, it's for example part of data collection, it's part of municipality identification, means the pilot area on which we will develop our application. The community outreach, how we can spread the word about our application, how we can find people who will test our application, what are basically plans for the future, how to expand. And then it's technical components, which is technical architecture of the application and description of the components that needs to be integrated. Then it's the web application itself, which basically collects functional requirements and creates a prototype design for the application. And it's also automatization, because sometimes it's not possible to find the data directly. It needs to be derived from satellite imagery or from linked open data, for example. And for this, you need to write some algorithms that will do the work for you. It will make the process expandable and more optimized. And then saying this, each member of this team should go to the project and join at least board's actual tasks and discussion. And the rest of the boards he joins by his interest. For example, if you are interested in data collection, you join the data board. Of course, you can join as many boards as you want, but it needs to be your interest. And the most important board, as I told, for which everyone should register, is actual task. It references the tasks from thematic boards that have a high priority and on which you need to work. So let's say, let me give you an example. It's some user, Dmitrij, that is joined our team. For example, he goes, he joins the project on Trello, accepts invitation, and then he goes in actual task board, and he notices that I put with a priority the task on automatization board to create land use identification model from Sentinel imagery. And what he does is that he goes to the relevant board automatization, and in this board he creates the list which is called how his name and tasks, Dmitrij tasks, and then he takes the task from the automatization board list with the tasks, and he drags it to this list. Here is an example. So here he sees in actual tasks the tasks that he is interested in, and he sees where he can find these tasks. Then he goes to appropriate board, and then he creates in this board list Dmitrij tasks, and then he drags it to him. And then if he is not, for example, 100% sure what he needs to do, he puts in the comments, Dmitrij, please provide more detailed description of this task. I'm interested to work on it. And then I can reply to you if you're not certain about certain tasks that are being written. Then it's also discussion general board, and in this board you can start a list with some general question regarding the workflow, regarding if you have some questions, basically. The most important for now is the task of identifying municipality for which we will create a prototype of web application. It's a good idea to, if everyone, especially people from Africa, if you know some municipality to which you have maybe some personal attachment, you know people who live there, or you yourself live there, and you see that there are some problems related to poor land use planning in the municipalities, and you can go to this board and write some ideas for which should be our pilot area. Then also it's this board automatization, which is basically about deriving data from such data sources as satellite imagery or linked open data. So it's about process of finding data automatically for a certain geographic area. Then it's data. It's basically when we decide on community, we start to work together and collect data for this municipality. It's lots of data that influence special planning, as data about demography, the data about legislation, the data about natural resources, the land use data, and in this data board we discuss where we can find this data. Then it's a web page board, and here we collect functional requirements, and we create together graphical interface design for the web application so that it's user-friendly and understandable for people. Then it's technical components. Here the technical architecture is described, and also components that needs to be integrated into the architecture are also described. Outreach, here we basically find contacts to the community we work with. It's good also to find the contacts to authorities there so that we can work in collaboration with them, and we can test then our application with them, and then also it is can be some ideas to which other communities we can spread our solution in future. So now, currently, the tasks with the highest priority, as I have said, is to find pilot area where we will test our application initially. And also, we need to start to collect functional requirements for the application, what it needs to be doing, all processes that will go on in this application. So this is two tasks that I identified now. Maybe today in the evening I will add more tasks that we can work on. And please don't hesitate to go and put some questions in discussion if you don't understand something. Put your comments towards the items in the list. Just be active and discuss. I'm sure that the idea we are working on it has some potential. And I remind you that if you haven't done so, accept the request that you got on email to join the team. And in case you didn't get invitation, please contact me. I will send you invitation once again. And thank you very much for your attention. And I'm ready to accept some questions that you have. Please ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Dmitrij. That was a very practical approach. And we lost, and he's coming back. Okay. Maybe turn on your sound again.
Yeah. Connected for some time.
Yeah. So ask questions if there's anything unclear. Dmitrij, so you're using Trello as the tool for collaboration, and that is a free tool. Is that correct?
Yes, it is free tool. Yeah. Everyone can register very easy in one step without paying any money and so on. So it's free.
So it's free. So everybody should be able to use that. And perhaps if they are not familiar with this tool, we could provide, or you could provide some information on how to be introduced to Trello. That could be useful, I think.
Yeah, of course. It's basically the advantage that it's very intuitive, and you can create a list that can be a question, or you can create list that can be list of items, or it can be some suggestions. So it's just go there, find the board that you want to join, and start to create lists and write some questions there. Just be active.
Right. So. So I've used Trello a little bit. So for me, it was intuitive to see how I could create lists and topics. But when you say that you can comment and so on, I have to admit that I'm not quite sure how to do that. So what you are saying.
Sorry, Bente, to interrupt you. Go to the item in the list that you want to know more, and you press on it, and then it's an option to comment, and then you write comment, and I can reply to this comment.
Okay, so it should be intuitive that as well. But I can tell you, if you feel a little bit lost, so do I. So, but we need to get, you know how it is, as in if you use the tool very often, you don't even think about it. But it might be sorry, that we need to get familiar with it if you're not used to it.
I will put in separate PDF instructions on how to ask a question, how to comment on the post, so that people can just follow steps to get going.
Yeah, and so, but what you say, basically, you want people to suggest things and be active on Trello, right? So you want input. That goes for me as well, because I will be participating in this team. I will be working more on the outreach part. I think maybe some on if there's something data sharing, so data sharing principles and so on, and open data. And citizen science data might also be interesting to use in this case. So couple to another team we have here in this hackathon. Anyways, you suggest that you have that we are very engaged in your Trello, and I see if you have questions, don't be shy, folks, to ask questions to Dmitrij now. But when is the next time that people will be able to speak? Do you plan to have a telecon? Did you say that?
It's maybe after we identify the community, maybe we can organize some teleconference. I don't know, Bente, if it's possible to do through your webinar, or which can be other technical solutions for organizing some teleconference.
Yes, then we should use it's several softwares. So Skype is one. Where you don't have the video, but you can actually just talk. It requires less bandwidth. That might be useful, and is easier for everybody to talk, like in a normal, telecom.
Yeah, I think what is the problem is that so far maybe 10 people already has registered on Trello, so it is maybe problematic to organize a conference with 10 people at least on Skype. I don't know if it will...
No, that works fine. Yeah. You can have many people. Yeah.
Okay, then we can just organize it. And the information.
I suggest that you you can make a poll and ask if people have their Skype address. So then, because they have an ID, so if you collect that information, you will find out if people have that Skype or not. And if not, there's also other tools like Zoom, which is free for 40 minutes. So and with how many participants as you wish. So there are several tools that you can use. But yeah. So establishing this link of communication, since we are working virtually, I think this is. I think it's important. Yeah. So
we'll see if Trello will not satisfy our goals, we can just speak on Skype or Zoom as you suggest. Hopefully it will go smooth even with Trello.
Yeah, Carol, thank you. Carol Jedlicka, he says that we can create a Skype group via shareable via link. So we can all use that. And I think I, as a participant, I would like to be able to talk, to discuss. Sometimes some things is more efficient written, but sometimes we also need to understand each other better, and that's faster when you speak. So so planning that would be good, Dmitrij. And I don't see any more questions here. People are shy. Maybe everything was crystal clear, and
No, maybe
they
they
are.
just want to go right to the project page and try in reality how it works, like to press buttons, to
Yeah.
think maybe more about the concept because it's not so trivial.
But maybe a piece of information. So the open land use map is something that you have implemented already in different places in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
in Europe, because in Europe, spatial planning and basically the collection of spatial data by government, it has some traditions and some history, and it's all available. You don't need to ask communities to provide crowdsourced data. You don't need to analyze satellite imagery to derive this data. It's just provided straight to you by usually ordnance service of different European countries, so like by government to say. And in Africa, it's totally different situation, and we need to go to communities to ask for this data. We need to analyze satellite imagery to get this data, and then we need to think about approaches how to basically how to set up the collaboration between some specialists, community, and authority to create, based on these knowledges, based on this data, optimal special plans that will provide to community some sustainable development. This is
Yeah.
some my.
But you said something important, I think, Dmitry, and that is that the satellite data is actually already available.
Mm-hmm.
So Copernicus data is already available for Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the advantages, and I'm saying this to our African colleagues here, that if the local authorities or local organizations, any type of local information will actually enable the use of satellite data for the locality. So the advantage of collaborating and providing additional local information is that the local authorities will get a more powerful tool for land use planning, right?
Yes. It is for this purpose, and also for us, satellite data is good because it gives us basically it gives us power to identify communities that have strong problems with land use. For example, if you analyze satellite imagery for last years and you see that the border of the forest is shifting and it's less and less forest, then maybe it's a good idea to go to communities who live on the border of the forest and maybe provide them some help. I mean, of course, if it's just because of some criminality, maybe it's better to call police. But if we can do what we can do. We can provide them some methodology how to prevent this deforestation if it's happening by some natural reasons, for example, not because of some criminality.
Yes, and I think in this time when we are talking so much about sustainable development goals, better territorial planning where you consider, like you said, the example of deforestation. But there are many other interests that is relevant as well. So the interest, should you preserve nature or should you provide more food? So the environmental questions versus agriculture and food production. So having a better material, having more better local knowledge, local data will be of great importance for those kind of issues as well. So I think that for when people from you guys from Africa are considering, what type of information, what type of or what localities would be interesting to include in this project, there's a number of different applications of the open land use data. So what you offer, Dima, that where you are an expert, is actually to develop the system here, right? The open land.
Yes, yes.
system.
We design it on the example of one community, and then we make it expandable, because I expect that we will develop some automatization, some algorithms that will help us to easily derive the same data for other communities, and we will be able to provide the same solution to other communities. But of course, I understand that it's Africa. It's a very big continent, and each region it has its own specific. So maybe we will need a little bit to change approaches a little bit from one community in one region to another community in another region. But I think the core of the principle it will be pretty much similar.
Yeah, so you use the basis, the basic principle is there, but we could potentially in this group we could choose like a couple of different areas where we focus on different types of data using the same system or the principles, but we will have different applications. And I think availability of data, so just the existence of local data, will be one issue, and another issue will be the possibility of collaboration with the local authorities or the local providers of data that we need. So
Yes.
yeah, so there's different types of questions that we need to address potentially in this group.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's also, not just we create it because we are scientists and we want to use the data, right? But we also we can't, for example, I can't now go to some house, enter the door, and just start to behave how I'm like at home. I can't do this.
No.
We need also to coordinate it a little bit with authorities so that they don't look at us as invaders that just want something, maybe some material benefit from entering this community. So that's why, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is good to identify a community where we will have some connection to citizens, some connection to authorities, and some personal attachment. Maybe some people in the team, they are able to identify such pilot areas. So this is the most important in the first stage to do.
Yeah, to do a selection of the area where we think we can actually then in the end offer something of use. And I think this is one of my babies that it should be useful for the local citizens. So the people who are living there, be it the authorities or the individual farmer or what have you. And the only way of doing that, and this is why we are here, is to engage with the people actually living that. Very often we are making mistakes there. So this is a great opportunity in the Nairobi Inspire Hackathon to do some small demonstration or create some small embryo of a project that we can develop further after the hackathon.
Yes, Bente, I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any more questions. We are 2 minutes over the 30-minute limit. So I think you will hear more from Dmitrij. You have the links to the Trello, and it's just, pulling up the sleeves if you have them and start working.
Yes.
Right?
I look forward for collaboration, and thanks everyone who has attended this webinar. I hope it was interesting information for you, and you have some ideas about this topic and some interest to continue the work.
Thank you very much, Dmitrij. Looking forward to work on this.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Have a nice day, everyone.